Good evening, Thousand Oaks. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for February 26, 2024. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating by video conference or teleconference. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Ferris absent. Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut? Here. Commissioner Link?
Present.
Commissioner McMahon?
Here.
Chair Lanson?
Here. Item 4, tonight we have with us Deputy Community Development Director, Fabiola Melliker. Are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
Thank you, Chair. There has been a supplemental packet and written correspondence has been received and distributed to all the commissioners and posted online as well.
Just so I know, there was a supplemental packet 1 and then another document we received right before the meeting, right?
The letter.
Okay. Let's go on to item 5. Public comment. I believe we do have one. So let me read the...
That may be for 7B?
Oh, it is 7B. All right. So do we have any public comment?
No.
That we will skip over that and go to item 6, the consent calendar. We have the consent calendar with the minutes for February 12th of the Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments or do I have a motion?
I have a slight change to the minutes. On page 3, it is the Health and Safety Code section was 5801E. It should be 50801E.
Thank you. Sorry if I didn't look at that note. Aside from that one change, any other comments or do I have a motion? Go ahead.
I move that we approve the minutes as corrected.
Thank you. Could you please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut?
Yes.
Commissioner Link?
Aye.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Lanson?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Commissioner Ferris absent.
And let's get to item 7, which is the public hearings. For 7A, could the Secretary please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider Agenda Item 7A, Municipal Code Amendment MCA 2024-70001 and Zone Change Z 2024-70001 to amend Title IX, Chapter 4 of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code to establish a mixed-use zone, requirements for replacement housing, and ministerial review for qualifying affordable housing projects. A zone change to designate mixed-use zones, MU, and residential plan development zones, RPD-10U, for housing sites as required by the 2021-2029 housing element and align with the 2045 general planned land use designations. Located citywide, the applicant is the City of Thousand Oaks.
And for the presentation, I believe we have Senior Planner Kristen Rice.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm not going to reiterate what Lori just said, so if you want to read it, you can, but it just reiterates what she said, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide and start with some of the background for this project and the reason why it's here before you tonight. So state law requires that the City of Thousand Oaks updates and obtains certification for its housing element every 8 years. We are currently a few years into the 6th cycle, which has a planning period from 2021 to 2029. And of particular note, the city's housing element is not currently certified, but we have been taking steps to get there, and that is the main reason why we are here tonight. Oh, I went too far. So the housing element was initially adopted in 2021, and we went through several rounds of review with HCD where they requested additional modifications and the addition of programs. And our final review with HCD happened last fall. And on September 8th, 2023, HCD informed us that they did not need any more additional revisions or informations, but they did remind us that in order to be fully certified, the city still needed to complete the necessary rezoning of sites within the housing element sites inventory, and that we also needed to adopt a code amendment pursuant to AB 1397, which is a program in our current housing element that we had a deadline to complete of last year. So they wanted to make sure that that was on our agenda going forward. So in order to start the effort to do a rezoning program, the city first had to adopt a new land use map with the general plan, and that was completed on December 5th. And this is primarily because the new land use map is the city's primary strategy for meeting its housing obligations. So typical with any new comprehensive update to a general plan, there is a subsequent rezoning process to align the city's zoning designations with its new land use designations. For Thousand Oaks, the rezoning process is being conducted in 2 phases. The first phase right now is to complete the rezoning of properties in the city that are on the city's housing element sites inventory, and those which also received a general plan land use designation of mixed use. The second phase that we will enter soon is to complete the rezoning of other parcels in the city to align their land use designation with new zoning parcels, and to complete a comprehensive code update, which the city has not done in many, many decades since it was first created. So for this first phase, the city completed a professional services agreement with Michael Baker International. And for the second phase, the city will also complete a separate contract to do the comprehensive code update. There are 3 components to the project before you tonight. The first is for the municipal code amendment for the proposed mixed-use zone, which also includes new development standards and permitted uses. The second component to the project is to do the zone change for sites to be redesignated to mixed use overlay zone, and there is one site on the housing sites inventory that needs to be rezoned to RPD 10U. And the third part of this project is to do the text amendments pursuant to the AB 1397 law. So I'll go ahead and get into the first component, which includes the proposed mixed-use amendment to the municipal code, which establishes a new mixed-use zone for all parcels that have a mixed-use land use designation. And all areas that are currently subject to a specific plan will be covered by a mixed-use overlay zone. This is to ensure that all existing specific plans remain intact and in effect were specifically superseded by the overlay zone. The specific text amendments that are proposed for this are to modify one section of the code, add 2 additional sections of the code, and specifically a new article for 10.5. In order to develop the new mixed-use zone, we utilized a combination of several resources. First, obviously, the city's new general plan, because it sets the direction for how mixed-use sites should be developed. And I will go over some of these policies in the upcoming slides. We also evaluated the existing municipal code, in particular where specific uses were permitted in certain commercial areas, and we also compared the standards and uses that are within the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan, and also some recently, or at least mixed-use development projects that have been approved and are either under construction or have been recently built. So for the next couple of slides, I'm going to just briefly go over some of the goals and the policies from the new general plan that we use to provide direction for how the mixed-use project should be designed and what should be used for development standards. Under the first goal of the land use chapter, in chapter 4, which is the overarching citywide structure, the main goal of mixed use is really to promote walkability and support a healthy economic balance. And the next policy on the slide is there to ensure that there are appropriate transitions between buildings where new mixed-use buildings could potentially be located next to existing single-family residences. So we took these policies into consideration about how we would create new policies where there wouldn't be any potential impacts to existing neighborhoods. Another goal that we looked at was the goal specifically for new mixed-use areas. And so these are a few policies we looked at regarding promoting pedestrian-oriented design and where buildings were located in relation to where they are on the lot. We also looked at making sure that we had a standard specifically for shared and flexible parking. And then there was also another policy regarding drive-through facilities, which we included within the new permitted use matrix. And lastly, some other general plan goals and policies that we looked at is specifically the goal related to the mixed-use village centers, of which there are 2 village centers in the general plan. And we heard a fair amount of concern in the general plan about residents not wanting their local commercial centers to be completely redeveloped. That's why there is this policy in the general plan that requires at least 50% of the existing retail square footage to basically be retained on site should there be any redevelopment. So we also carried that over into the proposed mixed-use zone standards. And then lastly, there is a goal specifically on the design of mixed use. In terms of where the buildings are sited and how much lot coverage there is, what the building facades should look like, kind of basically how people interact with buildings on the street. And so we took those into consideration as well. So for now, the next couple slides, I'm just going to briefly go over some of the proposed development standards. This chart was also located within the staff report. So we've included, as required, the residential density, which has the minimum and maximum that's prescribed within the general plan. There's also residential floor area, which has the 50% requirement, as I mentioned earlier. We have the non-residential FAR, which is also in the general plan. And we picked a building coverage requirement, a maximum 80% to match the general plan policy, which recommends a high building coverage. And we also have the height minimums and the maximums. And you'll see in the height maximums, there are some transitions between how far the building is located and how high the buildings are when you go up in height, and this is in particular, we use this in particular to match with the general plan policy that specifically talks about transitions and having buildings located right next to residential. We do have a footnote included here that allowed some exception where previous height is allowed for lots that may already have a C4 zone right now where they're allowed the 75-foot height limit. This is a footnote that is also included within the general plan itself. So we just wanted to carry that over. So moving on, there we have some setbacks, and we also have a third floor setback and a building separation minimum, which 20 feet is fairly standard. And then we also have a minimum percentage of ground floor windows, and then a minimum average depth of retail to be 60 feet. So these setbacks are intended to promote walkability with the wider setbacks. And then moving on to the next slide, these are the proposed parking requirements. And specifically, we took into consideration what the Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan has, what the city's current commercial and residential standards are, and also with the recently approved projects. We intended it to be a compromise between what the current code has right now and to allow some flexibility because this is intended to be in more of a walkable environment, but we made sure to keep the guest parking requirement, which the code currently has. And then moving on, we have a variety of other standards, which includes a minimum sidewalk widths. It includes some standards related to windows and vehicular access, and also the ideal location of where you would want parking located, so that we're moving really away from all the big parking lots in the front of the property and pushing the buildings back, and thinking of more of moving the buildings to the front and kind of activating the front streets. And then we also have the parking and driveway landscaping requirement, which is consistent with the code right now. And then the last slide that I have specifically on the development standards is for parking for particular uses. And so this includes restaurant, medical, outdoor dining, gym and health clubs, and studios, and the shared parking. And the reason why I have the line X'd out here, I will get to it at the very end, because we did include one correction to the shared parking standard. So the other part of the new mixed-use zone is that we've included a permitted use matrix, which is going to be a new section in Article 21 of the code, and it is these types of uses that we have allowed in the permitted use matrix are uses that are typically found within the city's current commercial zones, so they are very similar. The only thing I wanted to point out was that we did add one industrial use to the mixed use, which has to do with allowing alcoholic beverage production with incidental tasting and food sales and retails. And there is a footnote in the code for this that limits the square footage of the unit, so you can't have a massive industrial potential production going on underneath or near a residential use. And then lastly, we did add 2 categories. So the code actually has a category now for mixed use and 100% multifamily residential. So now we're on to the second component of the project, which is the proposed zone changes to the zoning map. A total of 453 parcels would be rezoned, which totals a little under 600 acres. 177 of those parcels would be rezoned to mixed use, and 275 parcels that are located within an existing specific plan would be rezoned to the mixed use overlay. 93 of those parcels of the total are from the housing sites inventory, which includes the mixed use sites, the 2 village centers, and then the 1 neighborhood site, which is actually the site that's shown here in the blue that has the PL on it. This is the 12-acre site that is south of the Kohl's building. It received a neighborhood low-medium land use designation in the general plan, so it is appropriate now for us to change the zoning from PL to a residential to match the general plan land use designation. There was a question that was brought up by a commissioner before the hearing tonight as to why this particular site was not changed as part of the general plan process. And to answer that, it's because the general plan process, we were dealing with was land use. At the time, that's our scope of work was only to deal with land use. So we were not dealing with the zoning at the time. And so, and typically when you do the land use, that's the strategy going forward. So now we're coming back and doing the zoning later. It would have been great if we had kind of done the whole rezoning process at the same time. But we definitely would not have gone to City Council on December 5th. We'd still be working on that effort right now. So it's appropriate, and as it was contracted that way, for us to do the general plan land use first. Now we are going back and doing the implementation with the zoning efforts now. And speaking of, here's a draft zoning map with track changes. The parcels that are to be changed to mixed use are outlined in blue, and while you probably can't quite see it, there is one parcel on here that's outlined in yellow. That's the residential parcel. So the zoning map that's provided here for the entire city, the entire map itself is really for reference, because the only parcels that will be changed as part of this zone change will be the parcels that are changing to mixed use, the residential parcel, and then I believe we made note of one additional parcel in the supplemental that went out this afternoon. And we did realize that after posting this, there is one industrial layer on the east end that is missing. So that's why if you were to notice that there is a white section of the map, it's because the purple's not there. But don't worry, it won't be white in the new zoning map. And so here's just the same zoning map, but the parcels are shaded. So the navy blue parcels are the mixed use parcels, and then there is the one residential parcel that's in yellow. And then the parcels that are within the mixed use overlay, I think they have the very light hatch marks on them underneath the TOB specific plan area. So moving on to the third and final component of the project, this is the amendment to the code, which is pursuant to AB 1397. This law was adopted back in 2017, and it was used to create new state legislation, new state regulations related to housing elements and the requirements for developing each jurisdiction's site inventory. So this particular law requires that jurisdictions allow ministerial approval of projects which provide 20% minimum affordable to lower income households if a project is located either on sites that were reused from a previous housing element cycle or sites that are rezoned to accommodate the lower income RHNA shortfall. So it also requires that any new project that comes in which proposes to demolish existing affordable units be replaced. And there are a number of requirements which are specifically included in the ordinance. So in order to do this municipal code amendment, we are proposing to add 2 specific sections into the code as listed here. So with that, we're almost done. We'll get to the CEQA analysis, which was used for this project. This project was determined to be within the scope of the general plan and the 2021 to 2029 housing element from the Certified Program Environmental Impact Report. None of the conditions that are identified in the CEQA guidelines, which are in section 15162 and the Public Resources Code, trigger additional environmental review for this type of project. And with that, I would just like to conclude that the proposed municipal code amendment and the zone change implement measures set forth in the City Council adopted general plan and the revised housing element. Both the municipal code amendment and the zone change is a necessary component so that we can move forward and submit the revised code to HCD in hopes that they will give us a certification of our housing element. So with that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution based on the findings contained therein, recommending that City Council find the project to be determined within the scope of the general plan and the housing element for the reasons listed on the slide, and adopt an ordinance approving the MCA, and also adopt an ordinance for the zone change to amend the official zoning map. And before I move on, we do have some housekeeping items. I just want to note that in the supplemental that went out this afternoon, which occurred because after the release of the staff report, we did identify a few corrections that we would like to make to the draft ordinance, and I would just like to read those into the record. So we have, for the proposed revisions, pertaining to Section 9-4.1052 development standards to remove the wording excluding residential and lodging in the shared parking category of the development standards table, which is on page 4. And this is particular, this was an error on our part. It was not supposed to be in the table, as the general plan currently promotes shared parking between residential and commercial uses. And we also noticed an error where the words front sidewalk minimum should be replaced with front setback minimum, and that's for the maximum standards as well. The setback really is the proper term that should be referenced, and we think that it's clearer as opposed to the word sidewalk. And then I mentioned this kind of a little bit earlier, but on the zoning map, there is a reference. It shows a particular parcel, and the assessor's parcel number is listed in this memorandum, and it shows it as mixed-use overlay zone, but it should really be open space, and that was identified as part of the City Council staff report when they approved the general plan. So that's already listed in the approval documents for the general plan. So even though the zone changes that will be reflected going forward really only affect the mixed-use properties. And the one residential parcel doesn't necessarily reflect this. We will remove that parcel as it was requested. And so the last thing, before we move on, I just want to mention who all we have here tonight. To my left, we have Dan Wary. He's the Principal Community Planner for Michael Baker International. And to his left is Hannah Kreitman, who is a planner with Michael Baker International. And at the end, we have Senior Planner Ian Holt. And then I think on Zoom, we may have John Bellis from Michael Baker International, and he is the Associate Vice President who also prepared the environmental analysis, which was one of the attachments to the staff report. So I think that is it. That concludes my presentation, and we are all here if there are any questions.
I just want to say thank you, Ms. Rice, and everybody for a detailed report of something that is obviously very involved. We all hope that the general plan was it, but obviously there's an implementation process that has to be gone through, and this is necessary to kind of go through. So I appreciate that. Let's ask commissioners if you have questions, comments. Mr. Lane?
Thank you, Ms. Rice. Curious the reasoning behind limiting the maximum number of access points to 2.
That's a good question, and you know that's something that we were talking about actually about 15 minutes ago. When we were first doing this, we were really focused on the majority of the mixed-use parcels, which happened to be between 3 to 5 acres in size. And to be honest, we weren't necessarily thinking of the 40-acre or so parcels. Where you may need to have some more flexibility, where they may be one lot size and you may need more than 1 to 2 driveway accesses. So that's something that we talked about right before this meeting that we are open to and have some potential suggestions on rewording the language for that particular standard.
Yeah, I wonder, just thinking out loud, if it should be tied to the number of units on the property or the number of trips that it's generating, or
We were thinking frontage.
frontage. And that, would those design standards then be retroactive, or would existing parcels that have non-conforming, but legal non-conforming access points be?
It would affect new construction.
New construction only?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Commissioner McMahon?
Just one small question, and it's probably silly, but you said on item 5.7, restricting new drive-through facilities, you didn't say prohibit, so how do you intend to restrict them?
I believe you're referring to, there are 2 particular policies in the general plan. One is the overarching policy to restrict drive-throughs within mixed-use areas. The only area that there is a mention in the general plan to prohibit them is within the existing Thousand Oaks Boulevard specific plan. We have included a footnote in the proposed mixed-use zone that allows for them to be submitted with a special use permit. So it doesn't necessarily prohibit that, you just need to apply for the special use permit, because right now the city doesn't have any standards for drive-throughs. So if they were to come in with a special use permit, that's kind of a way that we can figure out how they can be in the city and have the least amount of impact.
So it's a site-by-site basis.
Correct.
Thank you. That's all.
I have just a few questions. The question you indicated was what came from me, and you've answered most of the ones that I had as part of the process. Looking at the process, my understanding is from the two things that you indicate that were problematic, those are dealt with tonight, and obviously to the extent of recommendations made to the City Council, and that's done. Is that lead us to getting our housing element approved, or is there some other step that would be necessary?
The other step that's involved is that we would need to take the new ordinance for the mixed-use zone, and we would need to resubmit that to HCD. So ultimately, it will be in their hands. They will review it, and then they will determine whether or not our housing element is certified.
So nothing else that would come before the Planning Commission or the City
Correct.
Council?
Yeah,
Okay.
correct.
That's all the questions I had. I did note that we had a supplement in the form of a letter from Ms. Freilich and then a secondary letter from Ms. Ladd, which I don't know if that was been entered into the record, so to speak.
I don't believe I have the second one. I have the first one.
It's pretty much the same, but I didn't know how we were going to look at those, Mr. Heer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We just did receive, or commissioners and the clerk received a letter from the Oaks Macerich, which is, Chair Lanson mentioned, is very similar to a email that was received by staff at approximately 5 o'clock this evening. That was placed in the supplemental. Just to speak quickly about that, the email from the attorney for Macerich has requested you to look specifically tonight at the Oaks Mall as far as doing additional recommendations for standards and such. First, I want to say I appreciate the comments from Macerich's attorney regarding the Oaks Mall. Again, since we just received this at 5 o'clock, we haven't really gone through a detailed analysis of it. However, tonight, I want to make it clear that you are reviewing objective development standards for the entire city. A large site such as Oaks Mall, of course, will have some unique challenges and needs. We can address those with standards developed as part of a specific plan. I certainly do not recommend attempting to develop specific standards as part of tonight's action that attempts to develop standards for one single parcel or a set of parcels together. Again, as has been explained by staff earlier, this is a first step of many in the implementation of our general plan, and there's a number of steps that we'll take in the future to address additional needs that we discover through planning processes and development or applications, and we can certainly take a deeper dive into some of these issues. Certainly for this particular parcel, a specific plan could address some of those concerns that were outlined in the email and, of course, in the letter that we received.
And I would guess that by virtue of us evaluating this to the extent a recommendation is made, that these letters would become part of the record and the City Council can address it at that time?
Absolutely. And again, it's imperative that you understand that, as Ms. Rice has repeated, tonight's action is imperative for moving forward with our HCD review. And we certainly appreciate communication with every applicant that we're going to have, whether it's Macerich or any other developer in our city, to work with them on finding solutions to a unique site or a unique set of standards that they might need.
Okay, and Ms. Gore, I don't believe they have any other public comments on this matter, right?
No.
And therefore, I would assume that staff doesn't need to go back and respond to those unless there's anything further staff would like to add. Ms. Rice, anything further?
No, thank you.
So at that point, I get to the, unless, by the way, Commissioner, questions of staff? With that said, I'll close the public hearing and invite commissioners to make comments or a motion. Vice Chair Link?
Seems to me, and not to belittle the effort because, again, it's extensive, but at this point, I think we're just working on housekeeping items. So I am happy to forward or make the motion so that we do get the housing element certified finally. So I will move that we adopt a resolution based on the findings contained therein, recommending that City Council find that the project has been determined to be within the scope of the General Plan 2045 and the 2021 through 2029 Housing Element Certified Program Environmental Impact Report, EIR. Adopt an ordinance approving MCA 2024-70001. Make sure I get that right. Amendments to Title IX, Chapter 4 of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code, and adopt an ordinance approving Z 2024-70001, amendment to the official zoning map.
Thank you. Before I call for the vote, I believe, Ms. Melliker, you gave a copy of the Macerich letter, so it'll be part of the record to the staff. Okay, I just want to make sure that was part of the record. Could you please call a vote?
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut,
Yes.
Commissioner Link,
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon,
Yes.
Chair Lanson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0, Commissioner Ferris absent.
And as this is a request for a recommendation, there is no appeal period. And we'll move on to item 7B. Could you please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider agenda item 7B, proposed 78-unit affordable housing project. The request includes the following applications: residential plan development permit RPD-2023-0017 to allow construction of an affordable 78-unit, 3-story townhome project consisting of 8 buildings with a minimum of 8 accessible units. The applicant is requesting concessions waivers as allowed by state density bonus law to allow the following. Number 1, a concession to decrease the open space requirement of 35% to be reduced to 9.19%, with the provision that a connected pathway and gate will be installed to connect the housing project to the adjacent park. Number 2, a waiver to decrease the front setback from 20 feet to 18 feet 3 inches, rear setback from 30 feet to 10 feet, exterior setback side from 30 feet to 14 feet 5 inches, and a request for the exterior side from 30 feet to 20 feet setback, which requires approval from the reviewing body. The applicant is requesting 2 modifications to the objective design standards, ODS of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code, to allow the following. Number 1, row house standard access. The main entrance to each dwelling must be accessed directly from and face the street, TOMC section 9-4.2205E5I, and row house standard outdoor space. Usable outdoor space must be provided behind each row house unit with a 15% minimum of the lot area and a regular geometry with minimum dimension of 10 feet, TOMC section 9-4.2205E5III. Parcel merger PM number TTM-2023-70001 to allow a lot consolidation of the 2 existing parcels and create a condominium map, and planned tree permit number PTP-2023-70125 to allow the removal of 2 oak trees with the mitigation of 8 oak trees 4-1 and the protection and monitoring of 11 protected trees. Also, landscape plan check LPC 2023-70020 located at 834 Herbs Road, assessors parcel numbers 670-0-250-290 and 670-0-250-210. The applicant is DeSeco Architecture Incorporated on behalf of People's Self-Help Housing Corporation.
I guarantee you none of us could have done any better than that. Before getting to the matter, I want to say a very nice warm welcome to Associate Planner Angela Georgieff, who's going to be presenting this. Thank you, and welcome. And hopefully we don't end up doing too much of a problem in terms of your first presentation, but please proceed.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's my honor to be here today presenting my first Planning Commission hearing, and the last name is pronounced Georgieff. It's a hard one, I understand. Okay, thank you so much, Lori, for reading the description into the record. That's definitely a mouthful, so I won't bore you and repeat that, but I just wanted to say good evening to the commissioners and then to everyone from the public as well, and then let you know that this presentation that's before you is a request to construct a new 78, hold on a second, my thing is up. Bear with me. And it's still not transitioning, so give me just a second. Do I have any tech assistance by chance?
I always get these on my PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah. I hit this one. Which one? This one? Try this one? Okay. Should be this one. Right. That's what I'm pressing. Oh. Yeah, thank you, please. Okay.
Again. And then.
Yay, thank you, as if I wasn't nervous enough. So, thank you. So once again, this is a 78-unit, three-story townhome project, which is on the parcel which is located at 384 Herbs Road. Just to get your bearings, the site is located just on the corner of Hillcrest and Herbs. If you can see here with a little red marking. And the applicant is requesting that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution to find that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption for infill development, and to approve the applications that Lori was so kind to read into the record for a residential plan development permit, a parcel merger, and the associated tree planting and protection measures. And this is the project site as it sits today. So it is approximately 3.86 acres, and it is about 2,000 feet north of Thousand Oaks Boulevard. It is in the general plan land use element designation for the property is high density residential, which is 30 dwelling units per acre. And the zoning is multiple family residential, which is R3. A multi-family use is allowed in this zone, but is subject to review of an approval of an RPD permit. So this project site was most recently used as a private school up until 2019. Many of you may be familiar with Hillcrest, who had the location previously. In 2021, the property was purchased by the city with the intent to collaborate with an affordable housing developer. In 2022, the city issued a request for proposals to more than 500 developers. The city received 3 responsive proposals, and City Council ultimately selected People's Self-Help Housing Corporation to develop an affordable, for-sale housing project. The proposed project includes the construction of 8 total buildings with 78 three-story townhouse units. All of these units include attached garages and private balconies, and the exterior facade is a combination of gray and brown tone palettes. The use of different building materials and muted earth tone colors is intended to blend into the environment and the adjacent developments, and also to be consistent with the city's architectural design guidelines. On this slide, we see a little more up close of the palette that was selected. As was mentioned on the previous slide, the exterior facade of the proposed buildings is a combination of gray and brown tones, and the gray tone shades can be seen on the stucco, the siding, the garage doors, and the trim. Other architectural features include multi-panel vinyl windows with dark bronze trim, metal roof overhangs, decorative balcony railings, cornice cap details, and louver screens at the entry level. And here at this close-up, you can see the louver screens that I was describing before, and the material at the balconies as well. Also in this perspective, which is facing Building 1 off of Herbs Road, you can see the ADA pathways, which provide connectivity throughout the residential project. So there are 7 different floor plan options that are offered with this project. They range anywhere from 1-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom units, all the way to 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom units. The units that provide 2 bedrooms or more, they have 2-car garages, while the 1-bedroom units have 1-car garages. Just to get your bearings a little bit more, as you can see here, not sure if my cursor will show up on the screen, but if you can kind of see here where the project site is on Hillcrest and Herbs, the existing building, just directly across the street, which is to the northeast. This is the rural exclusive zoning. Primarily, it looks vacant from the street if you've ever driven down here. There is a residence just right behind these trees. It's on a downward slope, so it's hard to see from the street. But primarily is vacant lot over here. And then just to the right, which is the northwest, that is the southeast, my bad. That is single-family residential right here. And then directly across the street to the northwest, that is the Four Sons apartment complex. And then just adjacent to the southwest is a public parkland area, which is a Stella Park, which I'll be discussing a little bit more with the project description. These are some local multi-residential properties that are within the vicinity. I just wanted to show these just to kind of point out some of the architectural style that some of the other developments have that are nearby. Once again, pointing out that the applicants were trying to be consistent with some of the color palettes and the residential or the neighboring units. Here, I just wanted to discuss the height a little bit. The building height in the city of Thousand Oaks is measured from the top of the building down to the adjacent grade elevation. And for this particular project, it's ranging from 35 feet 9 inches to 38 feet in height. As you can see in this visual assessment, the white portions of the roof are the areas that are over 35 in height. But as I detailed in the staff report for your review, the objective design standards allow for a maximum of 45 feet in height, and the general plan allows for a maximum of 50 feet in height. So this project is pretty conservative for the height limits, and I just wanted to point out that note here. So we'll get to the fun part, which is state laws, which makes all of our heads spin. So I'm going to try my best to explain this as layman as I can. And, of course, if you have questions at the end, please let me know. So the applicant is requesting one concession, which is to decrease the open space requirements. Currently with the code, 35% is the standard, and they're asking for it to be reduced to 9.19%. This does come with a provision that a connected pathway and a gate will be installed to connect the housing project to that adjacent park, Estella Park. And so the applicant is requesting a waiver to decrease the front setback from 20 feet to 18 feet 3 inches, the rear setback from 30 feet to 10 feet, the exterior side setback from 30 to 14 feet and 5 inches, and the interior side from 30 feet to 20 feet. As was discussed in the staff report, this project doesn't clearly fit into the row house style that's defined in the objective design standards. As you will see later in this presentation, the applicants have orientated the buildings in order to preserve the existing topography and to limit the amount of earth disturbance. Therefore, the orientation of the buildings does not all face the exterior streets. However, they have connected them by an ADA pathway to promote pedestrian travel, which is the intent of that policy. The other modification request is for the row houses to have it says 15 feet space behind, which is sort of like a backyard feel. But while this private outdoor space would be ideal, the project site is zoned for a minimum of 20 units per acre. This project design is providing private balconies for all of the units, as well as a pathway and a gate to the neighboring park. Staff does support these concessions and modifications and waiver, as the project will provide an affordable housing ownership option for the middle class in our community. And this is just going into a little bit more detail with the setbacks, which I just quickly ran over. But you can see the request here. And the waiver is being requested for setback distances, which is allowed by the state density bonus law. The waiver is required to accommodate the number of units needed to meet the required density under the general plan. And now I'm going to go over the space allocation a little bit. As I was describing earlier, the municipal code provides a space allocation formula to be used as a guideline when evaluating a site plan for any residential project. The guidelines and proposed allocation are shown here for high-density residential projects. So as you can see here, for the structural coverage, the guideline is 35%, and the project is at 30.6%, so they are under that building coverage mark. And then for the paved areas, they are also under that 25% with 22.1%. However, they are missing that open space mark of 35%, which is why the applicant is requesting a concession from the guidelines for the percentage of open space. Part of the scope of work for the project includes, however, the construction of the pathway and the gate access to utilize the park abutting to the south of the residential project. And that park does provide a children's play structure. There's a multi-use court, so you could use for tennis or for pickleball, which people are very much liking these days. And there's also a fenced-off jog park area right there. And I just did want to point out for the other areas portion, that 27.6% is actually all landscaped area. That is part of the project. And I'm going to go into some further details about the landscape plans in a few slides later. So this project proposes to have direct access from both Herbs Road and from East Hillcrest Drive, which are improved with a 5-foot sidewalk. As you can see in the diagrams on this slide, ingress and egress are provided at both entrances. Public bus stops are available along Thousand Oaks Boulevard, with the nearest one located about 2,000 feet from the project entrance. And there are bicycle lanes that are also located along the boulevard and Hillcrest Drive in this area. Traffic from the project is estimated to result in an average of 36 trips during the PM peak hours. Standard city practice for requiring a traffic impact study is when the project is expected to generate an additional 100 PM trips over the current land use. Since this proposed project would incur a net increase of PM peak hour trips of 36 trips, neither a traffic impact study nor a VMT analysis was required. This table here provides a parking analysis which is based on the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code. It's section 9-4.2402 if you want some light reading. I wanted to point out that the parking is just shy of the requirements of our code by 2 spaces. However, under the density bonus law, government code section 65915, the parking ratios required for multifamily buildings are actually 1 parking space per 1-bedroom unit, and then 1.5 spaces for 2-bedroom units. And this code section also does not require guest parking. So therefore, this proposal far exceeds the standards that are set forth under state law. And I just wanted to point out that the applicants were trying to keep our standards in mind when designing this project. So there is a parcel merger that is part of this project. I'll show you the tentative track map in a second, but I just wanted to show you kind of a cleaner version so you can kind of understand what we're dealing with here. And it's this parcel 1 here, which is labeled 384. That's the address, so don't let it throw you off. And then this second little small parcel that's here, labeled 332. So this is just a merger to merge those 2 lots together, which are 2 legal lots. And so the APNs are listed here, and then with the tentative track map, the gross area will end up being 3.86 acres, and then the net area will be 3.69 acres. And here's the fun tentative track map to look at. There's always a ton of information on these, so the layers are pretty intense, and it's kind of hard sometimes to make out what you're actually looking at. And as I was mentioning, this is just a merger between two lots. So if you can see here, the parcel 2, and you can faintly see the little gray lines that are around it that identify that lot, and then parcel 1 is what is surrounding it. And so the merger is going to be to merge those two lots together. Okay, there are currently 13 protected trees that are located on this project site. 11 of those 13 trees are going to be monitored and protected during the construction process. 2 of those protected trees are, however, proposed to be removed due to the proximity of Building 1. A mitigation plan is part of this project, which is to mitigate by planting 8 oak trees, and that's a 4-to-1 mitigation, which is required for city projects. The landscape plan includes the planting of 58 trees in total, and the tree selection can be seen here on this slide and is generally reflective and compatible with the natural setting of the city of Thousand Oaks. So these are a couple of pictures. I did a site visit, and if you see here on the left, the PSH6 and then PSH7 on the right, these are the 2 oak trees that are located adjacent to the proposed location of Building 1 that the applicant is requesting for removal of. An initial assessment for the relocation of these trees was actually originally proposed. However, the applicant's arborist, as well as the city arborist consultant, did not recommend this approach with the current health of the trees. Therefore, the applicants are requesting to remove the 2 oak trees and mitigate their loss by replanting, once again, 8 trees based on that 4-to-1 replacement ratio. I also wanted to note, like I mentioned, I did do a site visit to look at the trees, and I just wanted to point out that they are relatively small trees. PSH6 actually has 4 trunks. One of the trunks is 4 inches, one is 3 1/4 inch, one is 2 3/4 inch, and one's 1 1/4 inch. So it's relatively small. And then the PSH7, it has 2 trunks, one being 11 3/4 inches, and then the other being 10 3/4 inches in diameter. And moving on to a little bit more of the amenities and open space that are part of this project. The main courtyard area that you can see here on the left, this is beside Building 6 and then adjacent to Building 5. If you can see on the top, there's a mail kiosk area that is going to be located there. They've designed this pretty well, where there is space for packages on the bottom. So if residents are receiving a package, they'll get a key in their mailbox, and then they can go on the underneath portion and grab their packages. And there's also a designated UPS parking space here, so that they can easily access the mail kiosk. There are also some picnic tables, and there are some bike racks. Additionally, in front of Hillcrest, there's also some more bicycle parking and picnic tables. Once again, we're trying to promote the outdoor space use, and then also that the pedestrian-friendly area and invite to the sidewalks. And then next, I'm going to talk a little bit about the lighting plan, which this project was designed to create uniformed illumination, and it's all generally in a downward direction. The light fixtures are all dark sky compliant, and they are a minimalist chic style, which is hopefully to enhance the contemporary architecture of the residential project. And I wanted to point out that the street and pole lights that are shown here will be at a maximum of 14 feet in height. And all of the pedestrian pathways are going to be lit by the bollards, and recessed wall luminaires will be located at the ramps and the steps. As you can see from this slope analysis that's right here, the areas that are in green, they have the lowest slope at a maximum of 10%. The applicant team, who will be presenting later on, they can discuss in more detail this evaluation process. But as you can visually see from this diagram, the placement of the building seems to be strategically orientated in order to lower the amount of grading and earth disturbance. And on this next slide, we can see the cut and fill areas. So in red are the areas of cut, and then in purple are the areas of fill. The project grading post-demolition would involve approximately 9,750 cubic yards of cut and 3,900 cubic yards of fill, with a net cut of 5,850 cubic yards. This proposed project has been designed to meet the intent of the city's standards, codes, and policies. The proposed building design and site layout integrates well with the surrounding development and has a cohesive architectural design meeting the city's architectural design guidelines. And based on the analysis and findings contained in the staff report, staff recommends approval of this project, subject to the conditions of approval. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution finding that the project is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332, infill development, and approving the applications which are listed here. And that wraps up my presentation. I do have a couple of people from the applicant team that wish to present, starting with Mark DeCecco from DeCecco Architecture.
I think we'll go to questions for the staff
Okay.
first and then go to them after that. if
Perfect.
That's okay?
Yeah.
Any other comments from the rest of the staff that's up there with you? I'm seeing a no, so we'll go on to the commissioners to see if you have questions of staff with regard. Commissioner Kellhut?
Could you maybe delineate for me what so it talks about the affordable housing agreement. How does that work?
So the city currently owns the property that the project is going to be built on, and the plan is to have the city council approve a disposition and development agreement in conjunction with ultimate approval of the project. And that document spells out the roles and responsibilities of the parties, the city and the developer, prepares some timelines, and it also includes the affordability documents as part of that agreement.
And can you describe for me a little bit, what you think is going to be in something like that? And will there be a deed restriction with something like that? How does that work? I'm just wondering how it works ultimately when the applicant signs it.
Yeah, so how it's going to work is that once the property is conveyed to the developer, the site will be developed, and then the 78 units will be conveyed to individual homeowners. And as part of that process, they will enter into a 99-year ground lease. And that lease will have covenants in there that restrict the resale to affordable families.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, other commissioner questions? Commissioner McMahon?
In reading the report, it seems that the city is deeding the property to the developer, and then at some point, it's said that the developer will deed the property to the Housing Trust Fund. How does that work exactly?
Yeah, so we're still working on the sequence of it, but ultimately the trust will own the property and then convey the condo and the underlying property for 99 years to the individual homeowners.
So the owners will have ownership for them, their heirs for 99
Yeah,
years?
they're going to have a lifetime interest in that property. Yeah. But
Okay.
the concept is that they'll have a lifetime interest in that property, but it will also maintain the affordability for much longer than that.
Okay, and then if the owner's income increases, if I can see multiple scenarios, they get a raise, maybe one partner is taking care of the kids and not working, and then they start working, are they still entitled to stay in the property?
Yes.
Okay, and my other scenario that was going through my head is, what if they have a job transfer? What if they have to leave to take care of an aging parent? Can they rent out the property if they have to move, or do they have to live there?
There's a owner residency requirement as part of the lease.
So no
rental.
rentals?
Hi, my name is Leno Shita. I'm the assistant for community development. There will be a provision for hardship, and that would be managed with the land trust. But that's only for hardship situations.
Okay. And then, now this is an awkward question. Have you taken any additional steps as far as the financial ability of the developer to proceed after what has happened with the motel project that the city was involved with?
So the agreement provides a timeline for the developer to demonstrate that they have the required financing to construct the project, and the city wouldn't convey the property until that financing is, they can demonstrate that financing is in place.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple more questions. The turf, I noticed, is that synthetic turf or is that real grass?
There seems to be a combination on the landscape plans of turf and real grass, but we do have the landscape architect here that can speak to that a little bit more thoroughly.
Okay, I'll ask them. And last question, with 17 guest parking places, is there any street parking or any other parking at the park or anywhere else if those 17 guest parking places are full?
No, there's no street parking with this project. It's just including those guest parking and the garage parking.
Okay. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you for your patience.
Commissioner Lang? Nope, no questions. I just had a few. And first of all, again, thank you for the report for a very detailed process, and it gave us a lot of good weekend reading, by the way. Just to get back to, I guess, the concept here. So the property will be deeded to the developer, and then land leases will be entered into with each individual owner. From the last condition, it looks like there's a homeowner association that's going to be created. Exactly how would that be set up?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the DDA, or Disposition and Development Agreement, requires ongoing maintenance on the site, and it also requires that CC&Rs be approved by the city before the first unit is conveyed. And then the CC&Rs are going to be recorded on each individual homeowner's leasehold of the property. And then ultimately, an HOA is going to be formed and managed by the 78 owners of the condos.
So even though they only have a right to a land lease, they'll be deemed members of the HOA?
Yes, the HOA is going to be made up of those owners, yes.
Okay, and then all of those rules and conditions will apply to the community as a whole, and they'll elect their own board and handle the property as if it's a regular association, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I know you talked about the parking, reducing it from 19 to 17. I know that's not required state law, but it is required in our municipal code, but there's no waiver we need because it's under a density bonus provision?
Yeah, so the parking that is being provided exceeds what is required by state law. So under in the slideshow, there was a formulation of the parking. You don't include guest parking or disabled parking. That can't be additional parking that you're required to provide. Or, I'm sorry, we can't require additional parking for guest parking.
So is our code not accurate then as to that issue? I'm just trying to understand exactly how we get through that.
Right, the code is accurate, but because this is an affordable housing project, and under the state housing density bonus, you are not required guest parking, but the project's still proposing 17 parking spaces.
Okay, so it's going through the density bonus
That is
part of it.
correct.
Okay.
And actually, there's a lot of different housing laws that require, a reduction in parking if they're closed within half a mile from transit, which this project is.
Okay. As to the traffic issue, again, this has been used as a school and a hospital. I don't know if there's any historical information as to whether or not the vehicle miles traveled would be equal to or less than or greater than the prior uses, but I'd like that information if it's known.
Yeah, we unfortunately didn't have a lot of time to do all of the historical research on it, but we do have Mark here from Public Works. I don't know if he has any more information to provide on the VMT analysis.
I see him coming down the stairs.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. I'm Mark Bueno, Associate Engineer with the Traffic Division. In regards to the VMT analysis, as mentioned previously, the project generates 36 p.m. peak hour trips, which is under the 100 p.m. Threshold to require a traffic impact study as well as a VMT analysis. Furthermore, affordable housing projects, particularly 100% affordable housing projects, are expected to presumed to generate a less than significant impact to VMT based on research at the OPR, Office in Planning and Research in the from state guidelines. So generally for affordable housing projects, they are not, they won't necessitate a VMT analysis. And the prior school had approximately 400 students per year, which would generate a higher VMT than what is currently proposed. As mentioned, there's not a lot of research because previously we looked at level of service versus VMT now, so there's not a lot of data for what the VMT the school generated. But just looking at the type of land uses, the affordable housing project is expected to generate much less VMT than what was previously there.
Okay, before you leave, any questions, commissioners? I guess not. Thank you. That would be it. Any other questions, commissioners or staff, before we go to the applicant? I guess not. So thank you. Let's go to the applicant, which I believe is represented by Mark DeCiccio, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and Veronica Garcia. I believe you will have 15 minutes. Please give your name and city of residence.
Great, thank you. Veronica Garcia, Chief Real Estate Development Officer with People Self-Help Housing Corporation. Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. It's a pleasure to be here, really an honor. We provided a brief presentation to provide some context and just background on Peoples and the project. And I will move to the next, actually, to move to the next slide? Okay, thank you. So this is our brief presentation on the project, our Hillcrest Homes affordable homeownership opportunity. Next slide. Okay.
Seems the snafu has hit you as well. Huh?
Okay. I was nervous too, so thanks for breaking the seal.
She's just trying to make you feel more comfortable now.
Okay, thank you. So again, this is, I'm representing People Self-Help Housing. We're a nonprofit, mission-driven organization. Our mission is to build affordable homes with site-based services that offer opportunities to change lives and strengthen communities on the Central Coast of California. We've been in business for over 53 years. We were founded in 1970 as a homeownership self-help builder. We have corporate offices in Oxnard, where I'm based, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo. To date, we've developed over 1,900 affordable apartments and over 1,200 affordable single-family homes. Next slide. And just a little bit about how we work. So we see ourselves as a local community-based organization. We really strive to be a resource, a community resource, and most importantly, a trusted partner that is seeking to be responsive to community needs. We're vertically integrated, which means that for the most part, we own, develop, build, manage our own properties, and we're also a supportive services provider, so we have education programming and social workers on staff. And in addition to, because in part we've been in business for as long as we have been, we have a significant track record, development experience, and fiscal strength to be able to pull off a project like this. We've also had a history of public agency collaboration, so I know that came up as a topic of interest, and I just wanted to highlight a few more recent examples. The city of Grover Beach selected People Self-Help and the Housing Authority of the San Luis Obispo as a development team in 2020. That also involved a land transfer and ground lease. We are fortunate that we just started construction on that project. City of Pismo Beach donated land for Pismo Terrace, a 50-unit affordable housing development that we're actually finishing now. Families are moving in as we speak. Very, very exciting. And then most recently, the state selected Peoples to be the developer for a property in Atascadero that is also a surplus site. This is through the State Department of General Services Excess Sites Program. And similar timeline there, we were selected in 2023, and we'll be entering a nominal ground lease for development of the project and expect to start construction next year. But back to our roots, People started as a homeownership development organization, as a self-help builder, which is kind of similar to the Habitat for Humanity model, where sweat equity counts as equity towards the purchase of a home that brings down the cost of the home. We've completed projects in 4 counties on the Central Coast. We have 6 future homeownership projects planned, and we have a history of development in Ventura County, 2 homeownership developments, one in Piru and another in Moore Park, and then also affordable multifamily experience. Our first project was in Ventura, an SRO project called El Patio. In terms of Hillcrest Homes, we're really excited about this project because it's a local collaboration. The project team that we pulled together are all organizations that are based here in Ventura County and are really committed to the success of this project and this partnership with the City of Thousand Oaks. People's Self-Help Housing will be the developer. Housing Trust Fund VC, Housing Land Trust VC, is our partner who would be the ultimate owner of the land before homeowners enter individual ground leases for the properties, for the projects. Ventura County Community Development Corporation, another nonprofit, will be a homeownership counselor for the property, so they'll be income qualifying buyers at project completion. McCarthy Companies was selected to be the builder, and DeCecco, who you'll meet shortly, is the project architect. Just a brief timeline of the project to date. So in 2022, we responded to the city's RFPQ, and we were selected, fortunately, in the summer. A year ago, we entered the exclusive negotiating agreement with the city, and it's been a great partnership thus far. We've been working all year to get to this point. Thank you again to staff for all of staff's efforts to get the project to this stage. In September, we held a community engagement meeting out at the site and welcomed in a range of stakeholders and neighbors to talk about the project. It was well received. We submitted our entitlement package in November, and here we are today. Moving forward, we're anticipating hopefully securing an approved disposition and development agreement next March, and we're anticipating approximately 2 years to secure project financing and in order to be able to start construction in 2026, so 2 years from now, at which point homes will be sold to income-eligible buyers. The next slide may have maybe an overwhelming detail on affordability, but again, this is our favorite topic, something that we're really passionate about, and this is just to drive home the value of what we're doing here. The median home price in the city of Thousand Oaks was 1.14 million as of December 2023. In contrast, because of the affordability of the project, our goal is to achieve price ranges that will be between $220,000 approximately to $665,000. And again, that's dependent on a number of factors which are not settled yet, not until we have our DDA, approved DDA. Fair market rents, this is according to the HUD schedule, range from $2,001 to $3,900. That's for the entire major metro area that is Ventura County. And again, by contrast, monthly housing costs for Hillcrest homes will range from about $1,850 to $4,500. And again, that's highly dependent on interest rates. If interest rates improve, and we hope that they will, the housing costs will improve. The project will be targeting households who earn no more than 80% of area median income. So 75% of the homes will be set to be affordable to household earning no more than 80% of AMI. And then another 25% of units will target households earning up to 120% area median income, which is what we consider moderate income households. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that the project is affordable, meaning that the housing costs don't exceed 35% of household income. And finally, we firmly believe and support homeownership opportunity. Thank you again to the city for your efforts to advance this project. We believe homeownership creates stability, protects from rental increases and lease terminations that families are otherwise potentially subject to in the private market. Homeownership helps families build wealth and equity. These homes, Hillcrest homes, will be affordable and deed restricted. That's the intent behind a 99-year ground lease that we're proposing. Buyers will be income qualified for purchase, and we're also hoping to partner with Ventura County Community Development Corporation to do outreach and ensure that families are working towards being ready for this opportunity when units are finally completed in a couple of years. And we think this will be truly a regional model for affordable homeownership at scale, not only regional, but really statewide. There's a growing support for ground lease projects involving land trusts, community land trusts, to ensure that affordability is preserved for generations to come, and that affordability doesn't rest within just the parameters of a buyer-to-buyer transaction. So thank you again for your time. I'm going to, I don't know if now is the time for questions, but should we move to our next speaker?
If you have another speaker as part of your application, yeah, go ahead. And you have about 4.5 minutes-ish.
4.5 minutes left to do 15 minutes worth of presentation. Thank you very much for this. I'm going to cut through a lot of what I was going to say. See if we can get, I'll talk while let's see if we can get through the technical challenges. First of all, thank you very much for this. This has truly been a collaborative effort between the city staff, especially Fabiola and Angela were amazing to work with so far. This project's going through actually at light speed compared to other projects we're doing in other jurisdictions. So thank you very much for that. If we can go to the next slide, please. Really briefly, we understand that this is a city-owned parcel, and so we want you to understand that we feel a real sense of stewardship, that we really need to do what the city needs and do what the right thing is to do. And we're finding that everybody at the staff level, all the way through the process, we're all sort of have a common goal here. As was mentioned, our entire development team, the entire consultant design team, we're all Ventura County based. We all have projects. We work on projects together throughout Ventura County. Next slide, please. Just real quick, a very brief thing on ownership, housing versus rental. This is all about building family wealth. This is all about, even the way the project is designed, there are 7 different unit types. The reason for 7 different unit types is to get it so we've got 7 different price points. Those 7 different price points then generate 7 different types of people that can move in that are at different life stages within. And then we end up with a community that's much more diverse than it would be if they were all standard single-family homes of the same price range. Next slide, please. Angela did a really good job of telling you what was going on context-wise, so I'm going to completely skip over that and just go to some very briefly, some of the thoughts about how we're developing the project. And I've got 2 minutes left, so I'll talk really fast. As you know in the staff report, we're developing at the minimum development standard, the minimum density we can. We could do a project that would be double the density on this site, but it wasn't appropriate to do so. So we're not doing that. The other thing is this site is not flat. It's basically 40 feet in elevation change from one side to the other. So we're trying to be respectful of the neighborhood and use what existing topography, which there were severe challenges even on the projects prior to us that we tried to take advantage of. So we're putting retaining walls in the same place where there were retaining walls, and the grading is where the grading has to be. The entrances on both Herbs and Hillcrest are in exactly the same place they were before. There was a third entrance at the intersection. We're getting rid of that entrance because that one's less safe than the other 2 would be. We spent a substantial amount of time talking to the fire department. We have wider than normal access aisles. We have additional fire protections, things like this, a very high fire hazard zone. So all of that has been taken care of. And again, fire department, great to work with. Next slide, please. This is probably going to be the last thing you talk about. In terms of the concessions and waivers that we're asking for, this project, as Angela mentioned, does not really fit into the objective design standards in a perfect way. So we started out with a side courthouse. Staff said, we think it's more like a row courthouse. So we're trying to manipulate between those 2 things, and that's why you end up with the waivers and the concessions that you see. And even things like, as Angela mentioned, the landscaping itself, although we're down to 9% of the open space, it's because of the way the city measures that open space. It has to have a certain width, it's got to have certain dimensions, and the site itself is basically 26% landscaping. And I made it with 10 seconds to spare. Thank you very much for this.
Well, hang by, there might be some questions that you can go into more detail. Questions from commissioners?
And by the way, the landscape architect and civil engineer are both here also, if you have some more technical questions as well.
I'm sure we would love to bring them up, but let's see if there's questions from the other commissioners first. Questions? Commissioner Kalahad?
I don't have a question. I just want to say congratulations on a really commendable project. This is precisely what we need in the city. And your track record, I Googled all kinds of stuff about you. Your track record is exceptional. And additionally, the collaborative partners that you've brought in, I'm very familiar with all of them, and exceptional. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes. How will the loans be done? Are the buyers going to get a conventional loan, or are you lending the money?
Hi. We won't be the direct lender, but we are talking to Ventura County Community Development Corporation, and they have a number of relationships, and they can actually be the broker for the home sales. So they'll likely be conventional loans, and then we're going to be working with VCCDC to try to maximize opportunities for down payment assistance programs. So Ventura County Community Development Corporation, they're really an excellent partner at the table for that piece of it, and they did join us at the public hearing for the initial developer selection, so I think they'll be a tremendous resource in that regard.
Yeah, that was my next question. The down payment is often a big nut to swallow, so there will be some assistance with that?
We are anticipating significant down payment assistance opportunity because all of the units will be targeting income-eligible buyers, which is exactly the market that Ventura County Community Development Corporation is targeting. So they have I think they have approximately 5,000 households thereabouts on a waiting list. The problem is that we don't have the supply in Ventura County with sellers who are willing to sell units at these price points.
Okay, one last quick question. Is the turf synthetic turf?
It's natural.
Natural? Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
And Commissioner Lake?
Thought it just occurred to me when you had mentioned to Mr. Checo about the very high fire hazard area. Is the property, or have you had discussions with insurance companies, is the property insurable with respect to fire risk? And how does that affect the affordability?
I have consulted our insurance broker about fire risk, and we don't anticipate any major barriers. We've developed other sites in higher fire risk, such as Buellton. We just started construction on a project in Buellton. So we do have a quote. We actually did get a quote for potential insurance premium, what that cost would be for home buyers, and we're not expecting that to be a barrier that they wouldn't be able to overcome. So
I would hope that since you have a quote, it actually means that you
Yeah.
will be able to get insurance. So that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I just have go ahead.
Just to add to that, though, also, pretty much every jurisdiction in Ventura County that we're working in now, substantial portions of the cities are now considered in very high fire hazard areas. So, but you're absolutely correct, because we do have insurers that are leaving the state for that very reason.
And while you're there, Mr. Checo, so I noticed from the street on Hillcrest, it kind of curves in. I think we heard there was going to be a bus stop there. Is that correct?
Yeah, at this point, we're talking with Public Works. They're originally, again, because we're getting rid of the ingress egress right at the corner. We're in discussions with Public Works about, are there opportunities there for an additional bus stop? They were also talking about the potential for a bus stop on the other side, on Hillcrest eastbound, on the other side of Herbs. So we're still in discussions with the city.
Because when I was walking the property, obviously there's a slope that goes down pretty quickly, so I didn't know exactly if you were going to be adding fill to the slope or how you were going to incorporate that bus stop concept.
Yeah, and actually, right at that portion, the right-of-way that the city owns at that point is actually much deeper than it is anywhere else on the site.
And as part of again, the leveling that you're doing, it looks like water in terms of accumulation is going to be kind of taken away pretty easily in terms of it not kind of going down hillsides and stuff.
Yes.
Sorry, it comes from the land use attorney, or a real estate attorney.
No, that's fine.
So again, ultimately, those are easier to flow away from the property, so it doesn't create any standing water kind of issues.
Yes, we can have the civil engineer whose his pay grade is significantly higher than mine, but yes, that's the intention.
And my other question in terms of the practicality is kind of what we're going through is, just for sake of anybody watching, for say 10 years from now, somebody wants to assign their interest in the leasehold, how would they go about doing that?
So, okay. I think that, a subsequent home buyer will buy the home the same way they would like a condo anywhere else. So it wouldn't necessarily be an assignment, it would be a sale.
Okay.
And the sale would be subject to the affordability provisions that we'll be working on with the city, that will be approved at DDA with an affordability covenant.
Based on I just want to kind of get confirmation so that an HOA is going to be set up that will be managed essentially by all of the members or owners of the properties?
Peoples would be anticipating forming the HOA, and we'll be working very closely with Housing Trust Fund Land Trust, who will be involved long-term in the property as the fee title property owner. So Peoples will be forming the HOA. Our homeownership development team has formed HOAs for other properties in the past.
Okay. And then you were talking about AMI. I just want to make sure the public knows that I think from what AMI is, the area median income is $123,500, which seems really high, but when you look at $1.1 million for a median sale price of a house, a little different. Anyway, so thank you. Unless there's any other questions, I think we're good. Have a seat. I think we have a few public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to read first name come up, and I'll read the second name that you're on deck. John Barassi, and then will be followed by Larry Carrigan. I'm sorry, Carrignan. Mr. Barassi, you have 5 minutes. Could you please tell us your name and city of residence?
Yes, I live on Lone Oak Drive, which is the hill directly above where this project is going to be. Since I've lived there, they've built a street below our street and built the Lone Star Estates. And Caneo School Road, they built the Mountain Gate and the Caneo Estates up there. Now, across the street from the Lone Star Estates, they're building homes there. None of these are affordable homes. Since I've been living there, I used to hear a siren maybe once or twice a week. Now, in the last 3 years, I hear sirens 1, 2 to 5 times a day, fire trucks or police. I went to the fire department and talked to the fire chief. He said, things are changing. I said, what's changing? He said, things are changing. I didn't realize how many affordable houses or places that Thousand Oaks has provided now. We used to be the second safest city in the United States. We're not in the top 20 anymore. What happened? Who did this? I love my community. We have 2 schools right below us on Hillcrest. The children are safe all the time. Why do we need affordable places? Do they do that in Lake Sherwood or Hidden Hills? No. They built all these other places here in Thousand Oaks so we could live nicely. That's why we moved there. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Carrigan, and then followed by Amanda Gibbs. You have 5 minutes. Again, please give your name and city of residence.
Larry Kerrigan, City of Thousand Oaks. Whenever the government is involved in initiating a project, my caution flag goes up. And hence, we look at the Caneo Drive motel project that's been in such a confusion. It seems like something goes wrong, everybody points fingers at everybody else. Everybody else is responsible, but it gets into a big legal nightmare. That's part of my concern here. I am a little encouraged by some of the comments that have been made previously by the architect and the developer. But I believe in helping people up, but not helping people out with a handout to some government-sponsored program to meet some kind of government quota. I know we're getting more and more of that all the time from the state, and it puts us in quite a quagmire that we've got to change all the planning things we've had developed over the years. It seems like the taxpayer who ultimately funds these projects always come up short on the short end of the stick. Abuse of some kind always raises its ugly head in the equation of government-sponsored projects. I would like someone to explain to us taxpayers and neighbors how we are protected from abuses in the future on this project. Are the owners of the corporation currently well-funded? Has this all been vetted through the city and all the stuff that's gone on prior to even them coming to make this presentation? Where does the money come from to build this project, and what safeguards are in place to protect us taxpayers? Are the eventual owners going to be local people, or can they come in from somewhere else to come and qualify? Is it we helping the local people, or is it we helping anybody to buy these homes? Are there steps in the process where you're not going to get multiple tenants? One qualifies and everybody fills in, all of a sudden you get, 6 people above living in these units that aren't qualified to live in these units. And what happens with that? Who enforces some of these restrictions that are needed? We have that a lot on Hillcrest Drive right now, all over the place. So that's one of my concerns. If the project is eventually transferred to some other entity, who stands and who is responsible in the very net result of this operation going on? I know it goes into a private HOA we explained tonight, but who watches, oversees all this? That nothing goes awry in the future and we don't have a big mess on our hands. And I like the fact that we've got a 99-year restriction on it. Let's see. So those are most of my concerns, and I just want to make sure that we don't get into some legal issues, and it's a kind of an arbitrage that's hanging over all our heads. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out and your comments. Ms. Gibbs.
Amanda has left Zoom.
Okay, so that would be the last of the public comment. Then I guess we'll go back to staff to see if you have any further comments and responses.
Yeah, just real briefly. So as we've discussed, the city purchased this property that this is going to be developed on, and so that is going to be a contribution to the project. The developer is also going to be seeking out additional funding sources, and they may be able to speak better to, what those may be. What kind of assurances does the city have? I mean, I think those are all baked into the disposition and development agreement. There's kind of safeguards in there to make sure that this project moves forward and that the financing is available before the property is conveyed. And then there's affordability requirements that are recorded on the property. So there are safeguards in place. Hopefully those won't be necessary to enforce, but they are there.
Anything further from staff? Any questions from the commissioners for staff following that? We'll go back to the applicant to see if you have any rebuttal to the information you've heard or the questions or comments, if you have any. I'm seeing a shaking of the head no, so we will assume that deemed submitted in that regard. Again, one last thing, any other questions? All right, so I will go ahead and close the public hearing and invite comments or a motion. Anybody want to make a comment? Commissioner McMahon?
Okay, I'll try it. I do think this is a project that the city needs. I think it's well-designed, and I'm hopeful that it goes through the way we hope it does. And I will make the motion. I'm not sure if I'm going to read the right thing. You can correct me, Mr. Heer, if I don't. I move that we find that the project is categorically exempt from the CEQA guidelines pursuant to Class 32, Section 15332, infill development projects, Section 15194, affordable housing exemption, and Section 15300 and approving number 2, residential plan development, RPD 2023-70014, tentative track map, TTM 2023-7001, protected tree permit, PTP 2023-70125, and landscape plan check, LPC 2023-70020. Did I get it?
We see how difficult it is for Ms. Gore to do this.
Okay,
Is
that's
that
my
sufficient?
motion.
Yeah, just that it's also the resolution based on the findings and subject to the conditions contained therein. But
Is that part of your motion, Commissioner?
That is definitely part of my motion. I'm glad you said it.
Before you take a vote, I just wanted to point out that there's a couple of corrections on the conditions of approval. And condition number 79, which is related to the overhead utility poles, the overhead utility poles should be underground along Hillcrest Road. Right now it states Herbs Road. It should be Hillcrest. Okay. And the last correction will be on condition of approval, number 162. It makes reference to an affordable townhouse units and restricted covenants. And it makes reference to condition number 13. It should be 14. Thank you.
Okay, I will include those corrections in my motion.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? So I will make my own. It's difficult because so many times people will look to the city and say, why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you building? Or why aren't you moving forward on something? And oftentimes the comment is because we don't do that. At the end of the day, we can pass things to make it easier, harder, whatever, for homeowners or landowners to do that kind of process. This is a unique situation in which we get to identify and deal with a number of different things, not only in terms of helping housing, but again, specific housing that we are deficient on. We've done a good job of approving lots of different types of housing for medium to high, but very little in terms of trying to provide some affordability. And your comments, gentlemen, the speakers, I take to heart. Because there's a lot of questions about how things are going to be run. I hope you heard a lot of the questions we had in terms of that operational process that we wanted to inquire about. My concern at this point is this is not the kind of low-income housing that you're thinking of, because for a median or an average income of $123,000, I mean, that's a lot of money these days. So we're looking to try to help people that are teachers, are doctors, are firemen, are probably everybody that helps us during the day with the various jobs. So that, to me, is a huge benefit that we, as the city, have taken a long time to try to find this opportunity. And the effort that went into this, I think, is just commendable on everybody's part in terms of trying to make sure everything lines up to make sure that we get the best benefit we can. Obviously, we can't help everybody, no matter what kind of project we're doing. But this does a great job of trying to help a lot of people in a very difficult situation who are part of our community. And that's kind of really the focus and the goal. So I will support that motion. And with that, Ms. Gore, could you prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Tyler Kettlehut,
Yes.
Commissioner Ling,
Yes.
Commissioner McMahon,
Yes.
Chair Lanson.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0, Commissioner Ferris absent.
And again, since this is a recommendation we're passing on to the City Council, there is no appeal period. We go into item 8, which is department reports, which I see none. Item 9, commissioner comments and AB 1234 reports. Any commissioner comments or reports? No. We move on to item number 10, staff update. Ms. Melliker.
Yeah, so there will be, on the meeting of March 19th, City Council will be considering the 2 projects you heard tonight. On March 26th, City Council will have a public hearing on the Comprehensive Center Cancer at 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive. And that's the applicant is HCA Healthcare, Los Robles Hospital. And a department report regarding the general plan and housing element annual progress report. And moving to 11B, items on the County and Planning Commission schedule. There will be a special meeting on March 11th, and that's when the hospital 400 East Rolling Oaks Drive will be presented to the Planning Commission, and there are no items scheduled for March 18th at this time. On March 25th, there's going to be Public Works. The staff will present a report on the climate and environmental action plan. So that's going to be coming. That's just a department's report. Thank you.
Thanks to everybody. I will just give my own personal thing of please register to vote if you haven't. That will adjourn this meeting of the Planning Commission, and we see you next at the special meeting on March 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Good night, Thousand Oaks.